Welcome in, fam. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. NBA on A2D. Giddy up.
Let's go. This ain't the fuck like this game, he stinks.
Oh shit!
It's gone.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the NBA on A2D, only on A2D Radio. Every Friday, we're going to be brought to you by FanUp, and FanUp is the best way to enjoy fantasy sports. Daily NFL and NBA contests and more. Win great prizes. Sign up today. Use our promo code A2D. You get $50 right at sign up, and you can download FanUp right on the Apple Store. Go check them out. Go download them. So interactive. I think you're going to love it. Actually, I don't think. I know. We got Sweeps, Nick Delgazzo, Ryan Brodo. I'm Tom Arnone. Everybody out there, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. So full NBA show for the people out there. Not only are we going to obviously cover our Sixers, but we're going to circle the entire league, and we're here for you guys. And at the end of the show, it's Ask Us Anything. So anything you got to get off your chest, any questions you have, we're here to answer them. We'll go through the most unexpected storylines early on in the NBA season. For the Sixers, is it time to fire Doc Rivers? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Our main topic at hand, Sixers early season concerns. That ties into our poll question, which is brought to you by Baggio's Bread. They're located right in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. The home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pies, sandwiches, cutlets, meatballs. You mention A2D Radio, you get 10% off your in-store purchase. That's Baggio's Bread, right in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Go check them out. Make sure you mention A2D and get 10% off your in-store purchase. Our poll question for tonight is, we should already be concerned about the Philadelphia 76ers. Do you agree or disagree? You can let us know live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere you get your podcasts, we're there as well. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, follow, comment in, answer the poll question. I want to gauge the people out there 12 games into an NBA season. I really do. Listen, I know how this is going to go, and I know it's easy to agree. It's absolutely easy to agree. You know, I'm going to disagree because throughout this, 4 or 5 years, I'll say 5 years of us playing good basketball, obviously not great basketball, we've had really good starts. Right? Extremely good starts. And they didn't finish the way we wanted them to. And I hate to say it's not how you start, it's how you finish, but that's the truth. Now, is there concerns? Sure. Absolutely. I mean, how can you not be concerned at 5-7? But let's factor some things in, right? We didn't have Joel Embiid for a whole week. Okay, that's never going to help us. We've been out without Harden now for a few games. That's not going to help us. And we do have a lot of new pieces coming off our bench too, and one in our starting role. So I do think, and it's not an excuse to the people who are like, oh, we're always making an excuse for the Sixers. This isn't an excuse. It does take a few minutes for guys that fit in their role, feel comfortable, learn how to play with each other. That's the facts of the matter. That's the truth. And that's not excuses. That's just the facts. Now, we look at Boston last year. Boston started out terrible. I don't want to start out terrible, but how'd they finish? They finished on a roll, right? On a roll, they get themselves to an NBA Finals. I'm not saying that's where we're going. It is NBA Finals or bust for the Philadelphia 76ers. But this early on, I can't get too overwhelmed and too overworked up about the fact that, hey, we're 5-7. It's not the start we wanted when there's a long season to go, right? And I said it year in and year out. The NBA season really starts Christmas, right? That's when it really gets rolling. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't win basketball games now. That doesn't mean you shouldn't win basketball games now. But I'm also a believer that I need to give it 25 games. I need to give it 30 games. If we're still playing this kind of basketball 25 games in and guys don't look comfortable, etc., then listen, then it might be time that really have some hard conversations. We'll talk about firing Doc and all that in the second part of the show tonight. But right now, it's really just are you concerned with the Philadelphia 76ers start? Agree or disagree? So I'm going to disagree. I'm not concerned yet. I have a little bit of concern, but there's no like big panic meter right now. I'm not okay with it. I lost a lot of Fazools last night because I thought they were going to win that basketball game. So I'm pissed off, right? But you can't shoot 21% from three. You can't do some of these things. They got to get better. And it starts with the leader of this basketball team, and that's one Joel Embiid. And I'm confident that they are going to get things right here. I am. Does that mean they get over their hump? I don't have the crystal ball for that yet. But I do believe 25 games in, we will be feeling a little bit better than we do right now about this basketball team. So I know everybody else is going to probably agree. So I'm going to try to be some positivity tonight and disagree. You asked me this poll question last night in the fourth quarter. I probably lean towards agree. Had some time to sleep on it. You're muted, Rye.
Off to a great start.
Yeah.
You made some really good points before we came on. You made some good points just there. Does them being, this sluggish of a team this early have any indication of what they're going to be in May or June if they somehow get to that point? No, absolutely not. We've had stretches of the last handful of seasons where they've looked awesome, where they've had winning streaks, where we've had MVP candidates, so on and so forth. And that's amounted to the same thing over and over again, which is a second round exit. And us questioning, is it the coach? Is it Ben Simmons? Is it Jimmy Butler? Is it Brett Brown? Is it Doc Rivers? So I completely agree. Like, this could very easily get turned around, especially when health is finally on our side, because it really hasn't been for any, some of the first 11, 12 games. First it was Embiid, then it was Harden, and you've had some bench pieces, in and out of the lineup the last handful of games. I would agree with all that, and with like, hey, it's early. If this isn't the same BS with this team that we've seen again and again and again and again throughout, it doesn't even matter how many seasons, what they've gone and done in the offseason, what hotshot free agent they've gone in and said, hey, we're going to get tougher this year, or we're going to get some shooting this year, because they've been one single thing for the last 4 seasons. That's a lazy basketball team. And I hear you. Like, listen, Harden's not here. Embiid's not here. Maxey really doesn't have a role. I'll agree with all of that. But then I watch other NBA teams with far less talent, with far less expectations. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. And we hate this organization. We hate their fans. But the Toronto Raptors. If you want to look at both rosters, you'd be like, okay, when both healthy, we have way more talent. Well, you know what they do every friggin' night? They play hard. They go after everything when it comes to the hustle categories in the NBA. We don't do that ever. And sometimes that matters when certain guys aren't in the lineup. And am I going to say that's Doc Rivers 100%? No. Is that a part of it? Sure. But it's also checking your pulse if you're an Embiid, if you're a Maxey, even though we love him, a Tobias, a PJ Tucker, who everyone thought, and I was even caught up in the Kool-Aid too for a second, oh my God, PJ Tucker's, he's a man of culture. He's going to come in here and change it. They're the same freaking team, the same team. Can that change? Sure. Because, Tom, to your point, it takes a minute for everything to get clicking, especially when people aren't 100% healthy. But the biggest thing is, and this goes to a Doc Rivers, this goes to even the, Lord and Savior in my eyes for years, and that was Daryl Morey, because Mr. Trade Machine. Your biggest reason for them struggling the last handful of years, they still don't realize, hey, we need an actual point guard. And I hear you, Harden's a point guard. Well, he's not here right now. So we don't even have a backup point guard. So that hurts Tyrese Maxey, who's not a true point guard. And Doc Rivers is saying, hey, we need you to be a facilitator. It's like, no, the guy is just a flat out scorer. So now you're hurting his production. DeAnthony Melton's not a true point guard. He's a bench guy that you have to throw in as a starter. Tobias is Tobias. PJ Tucker looks like a cheaper version of Al Horford when he was here. And your bench, it's like, oh, your playmaker off the bench. We're back to George Niang. Great. And then when I look statistically real quick before sweeps you go, and I get off my high horse here, it's that I look at oh, maybe the numbers will tell me something different. There's not one statistical category where I could say they do something well. Everything, they average, if you just look at team statistics, 21st in everything. I don't know what they do well. I would imagine that Harden being here is going to make things a lot better, but just fool me for once and think, hey, we're actually going to try. We're actually going to come out fired up for once. So I don't like it. I'm pissed.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about those stats is, 12 games in, it can be skewed a little bit, right? Like I said, like when you don't have Embiid for a week or 4 games, that's going to skew those numbers. When you don't have Harden for 2 or 3 games, that's going to skew it a little bit. But my eyes, to your point, my eyes tell me that they're not doing the hustle things, but they have hustle players that they added here too. So again, like it's easy. It's so easy to overact because we have such big expectations for this basketball team. But like I sort of learned a little bit of a lesson from the Phillies is I'm going to give it a minute. I'm going to give it a minute until I start running through with pitchforks, running Doc out of town. You know what I mean? Like I'm just going to wait a second. Not saying he doesn't deserve to be fired because I told you I wanted Sam Cassell to begin with. So I don't care. You're not going to hurt me. Doc's like not my guy where I'm like, oh, I'm going to defend the guy. But in the NBA, I'll speak on it a million times, and you have heard me say this. When Brett Brown was getting ran out of here, I said it, and I'll say it again. It is a players-driven league. These guys got to come play. You don't need a rah-rah goddamn guy in your locker room to get you going. Baseball is different. So if people think of firing and you're going to get a Rob Thompson effect, buy a clue. That's what I'm going to tell people. Buy a clue. Baseball is different. It's different than basketball. Basketball has always been, especially over the last 10 years, last decade, it's become even more of a players-driven league. And these guys got to get themselves ready to go. So if you don't have the internal fire to get yourself ready to go, then with all due respect, excuse my language, you're a pussy. All right? Because you shouldn't need a rah-rah guy in your locker room. And Doc is a rah-rah guy. That's the problem. If you ask anybody that's ever played for him, he is. So I got to look at my leaders. Go ahead, Sweeps, because we do this all night.
No, you're good. Like I said, sometimes the eye test is, it's not, I don't want to say it's deceiving, but to Rye's point, I do like how the Raptors play, and I like Nick Nurse and stuff like that, but they're only 7-5. You know what I mean? So as much as you're it would feel like the way they play the game and some other teams play the game, they'd be 15-2, but they're right in the middle of the pack as well. So, sometimes it doesn't always translate, but obviously I will take a team that rolls up their boots, the bootstraps every game and smacks the floor. I know sometimes you make fun of those guys. As a big guy, high school, I like to smack the floor. I like to get palms up. You know what I mean? So I was that guy. People are like, look at this idiot. All right, but don't worry about me. All right, and you only got 2 points at the end of the day because I'm in your dish. All right. So to the poll question, it's supposed to be an easy disagree. Right? We're 12 games in, 13 games in. Really, there's no reason to hit the panic button. The reason why I'm on the agree train is because it's to me, it's fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, whatever the goddamn nursery rhyme is, right? It's to me, it's the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's the same story, right? So I know he's, it's like, Joe, okay, I know you got a tummy ache or whatever happened. I mean, 4 games out of 12, he's out. It's just it's the same story. And they got time to gel. Harden's out. Is that ever going to get better? I mean, he was playing well. He was playing well early on, but here we go again. It's just, it is us in a nutshell. You know what I mean? And listen, there's a ton of season left. So, nobody's running away with the East. Not right now. I'm saying, the Bucks are 10-1. We expected that. That's not a surprise. All right, Spelling Bee's, one of the best players on the planet, maybe if not the best player on the planet. Right now. Just everything he can do. There's a lot of guys. It's no disrespect to a lot of guys in that category. Right. But that's what he does and that's what they do. So it's not a surprise that they're 10-1. All right. But everybody else is kind of bunched up right now. And you'll see some things flip flop, as the season goes on. We hope that we're one of them. But that's the only reason, like I said, that's the only reason I'm concerned is because it's I just feel like I keep getting kicked in the dick every year. All right. And it's only 13 games in, you know what I mean? But I expect, like Ryan said, I expect the same, I expect the movie to end the same way. You know what I mean? I just keep watching Halloween, And I'm like, and I expect to be surprised when Michael Myers gets up from being burned and having his head cut off. You know what I mean? It's like, I knew that was coming. Hey, Mike, see you in Halloween 30. You know what I mean? So that's just, I feel like that's the NBA version for us right now. You know what I mean? And I couldn't, I wanted to end. Of course we all do. You know what I mean? But it's like, until it happens, I'm just, I'm going to watch. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to, and we're going to crush them when we need to. But, and I agree with you. It's a players' league, all right? And we talked a little bit pre-show. You know what I mean? This is on you, Joe. You know what I mean? Like, okay, man, it's been a crazy fall for everybody. You know what I mean? I can speak for my house. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's been sick. All right. So I get it, but it's just like, come on, man. Like, I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you to just absolutely be the monster you were last year. All right. And then some, and play every game, unless they load manage you and make you sit. Like, you need to play every game that you can and find a way to lead this team and be that guy. You know what I mean? Like, like that we expect you to be. All right. Get get your back to the basket, get in there and get on the glass. You know what I mean? Like, is it wrong to ask for 20 rebounds? I've seen guys with less talent in this league grab 20 rebounds. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying he's got to do it night in and night out, like Rodzilla. You know what I mean? But can you give me a 20 rebound game? You know what I mean? Like,
Capella did it last night on him. They did it to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know Capella, that's his thing. But it's like, Embiid's awesome, right? So like, nobody's picking on him, being like, oh, Embiid, you got to be better, like everything. Like, no, you've been awesome for us. We don't know where we would be without him. But this is the thing, like, I'm pissed off with him. It's aside with like the moping and like, oh, like I'm sick for the 80th time this week, or oh, I got bad Chick-fil-A, like the same stuff we've been dealing with for like 7 years. Is that his offense right now? And I don't know if this is him trying to age better, because I've heard like that's what they're trying to do with him. That way he stays healthier, where like he's trying to integrate more of a mid-range game, right? It's like that, right outside the foul line, he pulls up and he shoots. I don't know if that's what he's doing or if he's more so settling. But by the middle of the second quarter, if his touch is not 100% on those shots, it's going to be a long night. Because at least before with him, for whatever reason, again, I don't know if this is just him trying to age better or this is just what Doc's trying to do with him. He would at least have the option of going down low and drawing fouls. Where like, oh, I don't have it tonight from 3 or mid-range, so I'm just going to go in and dominate and be stronger than everybody. But now they're not even doing that as much. And I hate like the Shaquille O'Neal on NBA on TNT. Like, oh, you gotta get down in the paint. Like, no, he's more than that. He's not you, Shaq. Like, he can do more. But it's such a predictable friggin' offense now where, like, I'll ask you guys.
Well, that's why he should evolve. You know what I mean? So I know, like Shaq should never, I know he's just commentating, and trying as a big man, he's trying to he would like to make everybody be like him, you know what I mean? But that's never going to happen. There's only been one Shaq. There's been a lot of great centers, right? But, one of the most dominating guys of all time. But as a great, guys make adjustments. Great players make adjustments in every sport, you know what I mean? And sometimes they evolve, like a chameleon, you know what I mean? And like, like you said, okay, so the jumper's not there. Like, how many times do we see when the jumper's not there, where Joe goes in and he might be 10 for 12 in the paint? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think ever. So I think I'd be 46 years old when I saw that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I am now. Hello.
Like it's
so,
I just don't. I don't know. I think we're like. I think we're again with Joel and listen. If they don't get over the hump this year, it falls on your leader, right? But I really think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit with him right now. When we're talking about 8 games he's played this year, like a little bit, because we're talking about the air quote what we watched last year, probably the MVP of the league last year. Okay. And we're going to talk about his back to the basket and all that. I completely agree with that. I need him down there. But at the end of the day, every time he gets hurt, guess where he is? He's down there. So for him to evolve in the regular season, for him to maybe shoot more mid-range jumpers than we would like, I'm not against it because the guy is that good. It's not like it's Draymond Green saying, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot elbow jumpers," right? All of a sudden, like, no, he's always shot that shot. He's always shot that pull up mid-range game. He's always shot threes more than we would like him to, right? But that's who he is. So like, I'm not gonna, again, you talk to me 50 games in. If that guy don't have his back to a basket enough, then I'll be the first to smoke his ass, right? But 8 games in, I can't get overly concerned about the guy who just proved how good he was last year, how dominant he was, not just with his back to the basket. That dude was dominant all over the floor, right? So again, it's not an excuse, but it is a little early to be like, Joe, you're not doing this or you're not doing that. Not saying it's not a great conversation to have. Just saying we're a little bit premature on that. A little bit.
I don't disagree with you at all with that. The reason why I bring that up, this and full transparency, do I think Doc should be fired? Yes. Do I think it's going to change much? And to your point from earlier, like launch like a Rob Thompson Sixers thing? No. I think
then why? But then why fire him right now? Then that's my question back to you.
Because I don't think the guy should be employed. I think the guy's checked out. Like I just don't. It's like almost an insult to our intelligence that this guy's employed. Like the guy literally shouldn't be a coach of basketball.
But okay. Well, first off, he should like let's settle down a little bit. All right. I mean, the guy should be a coach in the NBA because the guy has won a lot of basketball games. It's not Greg Popovich, but there's a lot of bad coaches in the league. That if Doc Rivers got fired, he would have a job within the next year. Not saying that's right. Not saying anything about that. I'm just saying you just answered your own question. If nothing's going to change, then what's the point right now? Like, what's the point? You know, because when I fire Doc, I blow the whole thing up. It's not just, oh, I fired Doc. I'm getting rid of everybody then because that means this team didn't get past what we needed them to get past, right? At the end of the day. So Joe's going to go too then. You understand? So understand, this is a package deal. Everything's going when Doc gets fired because it told me again that nothing's working here. And it's the same old story. So again, I'm not against firing Doc. But if it's not going to bring life or a real change to this basketball team and there's still going to be a second round exit, then I'll just wait to the end of the year and I'll get rid of everybody. You understand, right? I'll get rid of everybody. So there's no, to me, doing it mid-season, and we're talking about Doc Rivers, and if you guys should, if people out there would fire him right now, and we want your opinions on it, and that is brought to you by our good friends at Gleason's Bar. They're located 6700 Mill Creek Avenue in Levittown, PA. Use promo code A2D for 10% off your order whenever you dine in, take out, or online. Gleason'sBarandSteaks.com is where you can find them. So, like, I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not disagreeing completely with it. But like, if we don't feel like something would change with that drastically, then it's just firing because we don't like the guy.
I could be
not
wrong
saying
too.
you. I'm saying Twitter world.
I could be wrong too because I didn't think I will be the first one to say that when we fired Girardi, I thought the team would still suck. So I was wrong then. So maybe I'm wrong with this too, and it might change something. I say you have to get rid of Doc Rivers first and foremost, and this goes to what I was saying with Sweeps and you with the Embiid, like back to the basket, not knowing what kind of night it's going to be thing. Their offense right now, and I get it, they don't have a point guard, which is more so a Daryl Morey thing. Your offense right now, and this is why everybody except for Embiid just stands there. It's dribble it up, pass it to Embiid down low. He's either going to go up for a mid-range or he's going to crash to the basket when all the defenders are drawing to him. Everybody stands out there because when he's double and triple team, it's going to open 2 guys for shots. That's their offense. That's their offense. Instead of there actually being ball movement and getting guys open naturally, it's, oh no, I'm going to pass it to Embiid and wait for him to either draw some fouls, make the shot.
But listen, all due respect, that's not their offense all the time. Like, I get it.
Well, it hasn't been because he hasn't been here for 4 games.
No, I'm just saying, like, I get the stagnant. We all see stagnant, and I watch a lot of basketball just like you guys do. And that's the biggest thing that coaches preach is moving the basketball. It's the biggest thing Doc Rivers preaches. I've heard him preach it. So it's not like he doesn't press ball move. When this team's going well, they move the basketball. That's proof in that pudding, right? When every basketball team's going well, guess what they do? They're not stagnant and they move the basketball. My thing to you is that if we think somebody else is going to come in here and they're going to get Joel to play with his back to the basket more, I think we're misguided. I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm saying we're misguided as a fan base if we think another voice is going to say, "Oh, Joe, get your back to the basket," and he's going to go, "Okay." Like, you know what I mean? So he's doing what he wants to do. So at the end of the day, like I said, if Doc's going, Joe can go right with him, because that's all going to happen at the end of this year. I'm not, now listen, you talk to me 35 games in. If we're still on this pace right now, like a 5-7 pace, then guess what? Then we got to do something, right, guys? Absolutely agree. Something has to be done. Fire him mid-season, and we go from there, right? And Sammy takes over as an interim, and we figure it out. But I would rather wait the end of the year, because if they fail, I don't want to just get rid of him. And I don't want to get rid of Joel. That's my son. I love the guy, all right? But if they fail again, that's on your best player. I hate to break the news to the public out there. Twitter, everybody's fire Doc, and I get it. But it's this league is a star-driven league. You're going to go as far as your best players take you, like we watched in the postseason last year. We got eliminated mainly because our best player was banged up again. Right? Every year we get eliminated. Guess what the common denominator's been? And I'll tell everybody, Joel not being healthy. It's been the common denominator every year. Besides the Jimmy Butler run. Every year. Right, guys? We know this. So as much as I don't like Doc, I'm not a Doc guy. All right? But at the end of the day, I'm a Joel guy, and I'll be the first to tell you, if you want to cut nets down the city of Philadelphia, it starts and ends with Joel freaking Embiid. It just does. It just does. We'll never win one unless he gets it together, right? Unless he's healthy in the postseason. We had this conversation last year, remember, right? Like, we're never going to win unless he's healthy and playing his best basketball, right? When Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were struggling at the beginning of last year, right? I'm just using Boston as an example, right? They struggled at the beginning of last year, those two. They did. And guess what Boston did? They stunk. So does that mean Udoka can't coach? No. But as soon as those guys figured it out and got rocking and rolling, he looks like the smartest guy in the room, when in reality he's not. He's not. Because if he was, he would have never got in trouble.
I know. And I agree with you. I just think, like younger guys, should always have a little more rope, right? Especially, just when it's the same story. I mean, listen, Doc had, he had one. He's pissed away about 7 in his career. I mean, so like I said, it's the same thing that we talk about, the theme of the Sixers as an organization. Like we all feel the same story. Well, it's led by a guy with the same story. You know what I mean? It's just, so that's where I think a lot of the anger comes from. I can't speak for everybody else. Just for me, like, I've probably seen enough of Doc. And I agree with you. The players play. You know what I mean? I get it. You know what I mean? But when you got a young guy in your building, right, I think to me, it's time, maybe not 13 games in. So maybe another 15. I don't know. I don't want to let the season get away either. So I understand what you're saying, but it might be a time for a young stud to get an opportunity, to hold the playbook. You know what I mean? And Sam Cassell. You know what I mean? And maybe that's why, he didn't leave. Maybe he stayed because he knew the seat was warm. You know what I mean? He knew the seat was warm, and he knew his number was going to get called. Because. And who knows what he's going to do? I mean, sometimes, guys are great Robins and they're terrible Batmans. So I don't know. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but I think we're all in agreement. It's like, I've seen enough of Doc, over his career, not just here. I've seen enough of Doc.
And listen, I don't disagree with any of that.
Enough failure out of Doc,
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, right? Like, I just truly don't. Like, Sam Cassell was the guy I wanted to hire. When they hired Doc, I was good with it. It came with accountability, like we all thought it would, and it just held 25 accountable, right? So we knew that he was accountable to that loser, and that's sort of what we wanted, right? We wanted a guy in here with a track record that could hold people accountable and not baby them like Brett did, right? And we got that. Now, I think Sam would be a way better coach than Doc Rivers. I do. That's why I wanted him to hire him, right? I thought he would be innovative, and I thought, players could relate to him because he's not as far removed from playing as Doc is, right? He's just not. So he can get today's player a little bit better than Doc could. And you're right, Sweeps, Doc's always failed. So, like, Doc Rivers does nothing for me. So I want to be clear that, like, I am not protecting him. I'm just going to be the guy because all I see on Twitter and everybody else that wants to do freaking podcasts is they just want to direct it at one guy. Nobody else on this team ever gets blamed. Joel just gets free passes in this city. And I'm a guy, I told you, that's my favorite player in the league. That's maybe my favorite player in Philadelphia. All right? And I'll be the first to tell you, it's on him. It's on him. Ryan, you said it yourself. It's every year it's something. Every year it's something.
Yeah,
now, guess what?
I'm tired of
Maybe this year it's different. Maybe this year it's different for him. But if we don't get out of the second round, as much as Doc has a blame in it because he's the leader of the show, right? But my goodness gracious, I better hear people give 21 some grief in this city. It's okay. It's okay to be critical. I was critical of Bryce Harper more than anybody in the country, me and Sweeps were, right, Sweeps? Like, we were critical of the guy. And guess what? He shoved it. He shoved it. He showed that he's a true leader. He showed that at 30 years old, he grew into a man, right? Because we look at him on what he was at 21 years old, right? And 24 years old. I'm not the same guy I was at 24. So that dude matured into a leader, into a guy people want to play with, and not what he was in Washington, which was a little bit of aloof. That's what he was. That's just the facts. But he grew up. He grew up. It's time for Joel Embiid to freaking grow up. And you said it. The moping, I don't get in the body language, but he does mope at times. Is he moping because he's 7'1", he's gigantic, and he's tired? I don't know. But the body language isn't always great. And guess what? When you're the leader and we said about Ben Simmons, and you're the guy getting all the money, and you're driving a nice car, and you got the supermodel girlfriend or wife, and you got all those things, everybody fucking looks at you. So it's on you to wake up. So do you want Doc fired? Is that what you're doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe Doc's too hard on him. I don't know. Maybe he wants Doc fired. I would be hard pressed to say the guy's trying to cough up games too, right? And you said it. We're playing without a point guard right now. So, and I agree with Sweeps. Would I fire him right now? Maybe. If they did right now, I would say, okay, I wouldn't be mad about it. But I also would like to give it like 30. Give me like 25, 30 to fill the room.
It's like if you fired Doc, say after 30, game 32. And then you go on a run with Sam Cassell, who we all think, hey, he's somebody that we looked at before Doc Rivers even became a possibility, before he was, let go or whatever it was.
Which was Tyronn Lue.
Yeah, well, that too. And you go and you lose in the first or second round again. I feel like I'm learning two different things, okay? I'm learning whether or not Doc was truly the problem, and if it's the same result, because it's not like we're firing him in game 81, where it's like, oh, Sam Cassell, you've got 2 weeks with these guys to figure it out. Like, no, you've got a big bulk of the season, and it still ends up being the same case scenario where they disappoint or he gets another broken face or another stomach issue. I'm learning about two people. Is Doc Rivers the issue? Boom, let's check that off. If they respond, awesome. If they don't, well, then it's on these guys also. It's like you're killing two birds with one stone because, again, does Doc deserve all of the blame? No. I think Daryl Morey deserves a ton of blame, which nobody's talking about. And I get it, it's early, and you still need to see if Daniel House still can play basketball, even though he can't. The guy was like a 10-day walking contract the past 2 years, but Daryl thought, oh, he played for the Rockets once, so I'm going to sign him the first hour of free agency. Or if PJ Tucker isn't running around like he's actually 39 years old, like that's going to take time. I get it. But I feel like I'm learning more about this team if you start actually pushing the proverbial button of like, oh, we actually got to get things moving here and stop coasting like we're the freaking Golden State Warriors and we're coming off another NBA title. It's like, guys, you haven't won anything. If you won something last year and you have this long resume, we would give you the benefit of the doubt for being like, they can coast, but they're fine. They do this before, they figure it out. It's like, no, actually the exact opposite.
Well, like I'll say one thing, right? This organization brought in a great coaching staff around Doc Rivers. That's factual, right?
Most expensive one.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, like we have a great staff. And forget Doc, like outside of Doc, Sammy, everybody else, right? We have a great supporting cast around him. So at what point are we gonna put the binoculars on and say, hey, are the players playing? Are you guys good? And you're right about that. I don't have a big issue with House because he's a guy who's going to play 15 minutes a night, right? 10 minutes a night, right? And I think what Doc's trying to figure out is what's going to be his rotation. What's it going to be? He's using this time to sort of see what he has. And I don't blame him for that because this is the time to do it. You don't do it at the end of the season. You figure this stuff out now, right? So I think that's why I'm so freaking stuck on. We were so excited that we got accountability, that we had this great defensive coach that we hired, that we got Sam Cassell too. Like we wanted Sam as a head coach, and we're like, oh, we got Doc and Sam. And then the other list of assistants that are part of this staff are really well respected around the NBA. So at what point do we say, man, maybe these players just aren't good enough? Maybe before we fire Doc and the whole staff, maybe we should fire Daryl. You know what I mean? Maybe Elton did a better job with this team than Daryl did in reality, but they put Elton Brand in the closet. That's what they did. They put Elton Brand in the closet.
Well, that's you had said, and I think you're on the right track with it. Like when Doc goes, that's when you blow it up. It's, to be honest with you, it's when Daryl goes. When you fire Daryl, that's when you go into, I'm not saying Sam Hinkie process, but that's when you blow it up and you start, tanking for Wembanyama or whatever, Wembanyama type player there will be whatever that you actually decide to push that button.
And if you blew it up, and I don't even want to talk about blowing it up really too much, right? No. We have so much season left. But if you had to at the end of the year and blow this up, you are getting a haul for Joel Embiid. And I don't want to trade him. So I'll be the first to say I don't want that to happen. But if you did, it's not like you're not getting a haul back. I mean, that guy's a top 5 player in the league. And everybody around the league knows that. So it's not like, oh, if I trade Joe, I'm just getting unprotected picks back. No, you're getting a haul back for that dude. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a start over, right? It can be like, okay, semi-start over because I'm going to get some picks back.
Say semi is the right word because that's that's really what you have to do because, right now it's a losing culture. 50 wins, that's all cute. You know what I mean? And I think we were killer. We were jacked up about Doc because, we were tired of Brett. You know what I mean? So that was like, he could have brought anybody in at the time. And we were like, all right, good, just keep doing it. That's enough of Brett, man. Let's go. I mean, maybe somebody can fix 2-5, you know what I mean? And nobody could, you know what I mean? So, so that's where I say, to your point, a ton of season left, but, it's, how many second round exits can you have? It's just a losing culture. It's like something has to change, and we'll see. Like there's a lot of season left. So
and real quick, right? Like sweeps. There's no right answer here, right? Because that's the thing. I think when we all watch this team, we're like, what are they right now?
No, what do they do?
We can't put our finger on one thing, right?
No identity.
No identity at all. And we thought we got toughness, right? I mean, I was clamoring like, look at us. We're like the junkyard dogs. We're like the junkyard dogs.
Yeah.
But now, let's be fair. Let's allow those guys to start having a voice in the locker room too, right? Because you can't expect guys who just walked in the door 12 games in to expect that their voice might not resonate right away, right? Because they're getting comfortable. They're in a new city, right? When you talk about PJ and Harold, right? They're in a new environment, right? But I think over time, the way they play the game and their toughness will start rubbing off. I want to believe that. I'm not saying I got the crystal ball and that's going to happen. I'm just looking for things on why that didn't right away, right? Why that toughness didn't hit right away. I think it will over some time, right? And I'm not talking about 2 years from now because we don't have that kind of time. I'm talking about like another 20 games. Another 20 games, I think we're going to have a better identity because Sweeps is right. We don't have one right now. Who are we? What do we do extremely well? You read off the numbers earlier, right? What do we do extremely well? Nothing, right? So at the end of the day, what are we? But again, we don't do any, like we're 26 in rebounding. Well, it's part of that because Joe missed 4 games, semi. The other part of it is the energy, the want to. When we talk about rebound, that's a 1-2 thing. Ain't no coach going to get you to rebound the basketball. That's on you guys that want to rebound the basketball and box out. So I think when James does come back, and to your point again, right? Like we don't have a true point. When James does come back, this is a good basketball team. How good? I don't know. None of us know yet. But right now, it's tough to watch. So I agree with everybody out there. Like it is tough to freaking watch right now. And they'll have moments where you're like, okay. But guess what? I'll say this last thing about that. It ain't his fault we shot 21% last night. Like, I mean, this is a league where you got to shoot threes. Like somebody said earlier, well, we'll make them drive to the basket more. Come on, guys. It's the 2022 NBA. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. But you need to make your threes to win basketball games.
Well, that they're shooting, to whoever said that, There, and again, I understand, like, we don't want it to just be like a show reading off stats, but the one statistic where they're actually like somewhat decent is 3-point shooting. They're 7th in the league. That was the only category. I looked for a freaking hour this afternoon. That was the only category where they were in the top 10. And they're 7th. And part of that is probably because George Niang, like 3 games ago, went off for like 7 threes, and Maxey had a good game. But that tells you right there. This is their identity. To your point, Sweeps, to your point, Tom. Their identity, or what they're trying to get their identity to be, is that when Tyrese Maxey's on the floor with Harden, they want to play fast. But then they realize, okay, we want to play fast, but we have PJ Tucker, Tobias, Niang, and Embiid also on the floor. One of, combination of those guys. When it's Embiid on the floor, they want it to be, like I said, everyone pressures on Joe, therefore it alleviates pressure and it opens up guys open from the perimeter. Here, again, just like we talked about how we know what kind of a night it's going to be for Joe based off of his mid-range game. If they're not hitting early from 3, it's going to be a minor miracle for them to win a game because they rely so heavily on their 3-point shooting to where if they're not let's just say above average, not even great from 3, you're not winning the game because you have no other redeeming qualities. You suck on transition, both sides, offense and defense. You can't rebound. And to your point, they're not. This is not the day and age where everything's going to be down in the paint. So
as much as I miss that day and age
yes.
where Joel could put his back to the basket and go for 50 every night because he's that dominant, but he is so skilled that like I don't need him with his back to the basket and getting hacked all night and always ended up on the floor, right? Because that's some of the problems we have with Joe. Like, can you stay on your feet, babe? You know what I mean? So like again, he can make that mid-range jumper at will. Mm-hmm. Like that's his shot. Like, so him shooting threes or mid-range game, like I got no problem with it because he's arguably probably our best overall shooter, right? When you really look at it, Harden needs a little bit more volume, but with the end of the Doc Rivers little rant for us, I think we're all okay if he got fired now. And I think we'd all be like, you know what? If you do it at Christmas time, that's okay too, right? That we're willing to give it a couple more weeks to see if they snap out of it and start playing better. But we're all okay if they decided right now, at 11 o'clock Eastern time, that they said, hey, Doc Rivers has been relieved of his duties. Nobody's going to blink an eye here. I just get tired of the podcast cats that I feel like think they know basketball and they don't, and they just don't want to blame anybody else. It's nobody else's fault but one guy. And I'm not saying it's not his fault, but when you're failing as a team, it's a lot of people's faults from the top to the bottom. From your general manager, vice president, president of basketball operations, down to the guys playing on the floor, right? It's everybody's problem, right? When you fail, is it just always one guy? No, we always look at the coach, rightfully so, that's the reason we didn't do what we wanted to do. But in reality, it's a total organizational failure when you can't get over a hump. And that's what I need the real basketball people to start understanding. I know you guys do, right? I'm talking about the other people who do live shows that just want to constantly, it's Doc. It's all Doc. So we'll just talk about Doc for 25 minutes now. He's the only one to blame. And Daryl gets scot-free, right? He gets away scot-free on shit, like you said, right? When he's got a lot he put the roster together.
Oh, yeah, that's my guy. That's Uncle Daryl. But even then, I'm like, Daryl, what the hell are we doing? What are we doing?
And then we're going to talk about no blame to Joe? Like, come on. So this is why A2D is the best, because Joe's my guy. But he'll never get away. He'll never get away with me not criticizing him when it's rightfully so. That would be agenda-based.
It's people that can't separate the two. It's you can love the player, but be sick of the act. That's where I am. That's, I think, where everybody is.
I got crushed, right? I got crushed for that video the other day saying, like, I'm sick. I'm doing shows. I'm going to work. And people are smoking me like, you're just sitting on your couch. And I said, well, in my line of work, I'm active. So just in reality, like, I'm not going to sit at a desk. I got to be active in my line of work. So I don't want to hear it. Like, you want to miss 2 or 3 days, fine. You're sick. I get it. I was banged up for 10. But at the end of the day, if I can come on and do a show banged up, I'm going to need you to bring some energy too, babe. So
real quick, and to Bill's question, not that I want to talk about Ime Udoka for like ever, but it actually coincides with something I was going to bring up. Bill, for Kenny Atkinson, I would like it. I don't know. I don't want to speak for Sweeps and Tom. I just don't think Kenny Atkinson would come here because he had the opportunity to be a head coach, granted in Charlotte, but he just said he wanted to be and stay with the Warriors. The Ime Udoka thing I think is interesting, not because it's like that story, like that story is a mess, but because there was a report that came out the last couple hours saying that an unknown team, according to league executives, has been internally, following along with the availability of Ime Udoka. And it says, quote, Ime was going to be their guy if they fire their current coach. In my opinion, that's got Philly written all over it. Which even then, I'm not sure if I love, because I don't know if for numerous reasons.
Yeah, not sure I love the baggage or whatever that may bring. I don't know. But guess what? If you can coach, you can coach. And I read that earlier too. So, again, I'm up for anything. Anything. So you could tell me anything right now. Kenny Atkinson. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. But I don't necessarily believe that changes something. But listen, I've been wrong before. So it ain't going to be the first time. Wouldn't be the last. So I'm up for whatever can help this team get out of a second round and get to an NBA Finals, whatever that may be. So going on to our third little segment here is
even if it's a scapegoat, you know what I mean? I know. I'm sorry, not to
no, go ahead.
Just like just real quick, just because I just used the Nash narrative. You know what I mean? Like it was convenient to 12 games in to fire Steve Nash. You know what I mean? Like we know that it started in the offseason. You know what I mean? Cupcake Boy had a problem with him. For whatever reason, but you know what I mean? Like worry about your buddy that can't keep his mouth shut, and worry about 2-5 that's an absolute disgrace. You know what I mean? But let's fire Steve Nash. You know what I mean? So, that's we're not talking about other teams here, but it's sometimes, there I guess there needs to be a scapegoat. Maybe it lights a fire, even though it's not like, that kind of sport, to your point earlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Like, okay, and I see a post here about Charles Bassey, right? Come on, dude. If you put a gun to somebody's head before the season, and you say you can have Montrez or Charles Bassey, everybody in the NBA is saying Montrez. Can we stop it, please?
Tom,
and if you think Doc Rivers got rid of him, again, you don't know what you're talking about.
It's a Darryl.
Darryl got rid of him.
I would have said, and we were talking about this all summer, I was saying Montrez over everybody we had, and I didn't know if Montrez was even going to be available. I thought he was going to jail. Like,
slinging weed.
Yes. So I was like, oh, I'll take the chance of him going to jail. Give me Montrez, who's, by the way, been like one of the few bright spots of this team when Doc wants to play him at center instead of George Niang last night, but I digress.
And let's just give it, like I said, let's give it another minute, and in 3 weeks from now, we're probably going to be having the same conversation, but maybe not. So the most unexpected storylines early on in the NBA season here is brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Locations Burlington, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can find them right on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Our doc, make him yours. He's the best in the business. They set most major insurances. If you need him, give him a ring. Tell him the family from A2D sent you. Well, I mean, the Utah Jazz are an unexpected storyline, right? I mean, I don't think anybody expected that.
They were mine, Tom. And I thought I was like going outside the box. But you're absolutely right. And it's not even like that they're awesome. It's that like they're so shocking that like NBA people on ESPN, I put in quotations because of based off of things that they've said. They're like criticizing Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz because, oh my God, you guys are too good for your own good. What happened to you tanking for Wembanyama? It's like, you freaking morons. Do you not realize this is the best thing that can happen for Utah? Because they could do one of two things. One, this is awesome for Utah because they pulled off it looks like the biggest fleece job maybe ever in the NBA with the Rudy Gobert trade. Like Minnesota's over there, who I thought was going to be good. They're a freaking disaster. Like I feel like things are really bad here. Then I'm like, oh wait, the Timberwolves are a thing. They got rid of the Rudy Gobert thing. They got a ton of assets. They have guys like Lauri Markkanen, who couldn't figure it out everywhere he was. He's playing unbelievable. You've got Olenek playing great, Clarkson playing great, Conley playing great. So you can do two things. You can either continue to try and win with what you have, which is a lot of talent there, or you want to tank for Scoot or Wembanyama. All those guys you were going to trade away anyway, Markkanen, Conley, Clarkson, their price just skyrocketed. You might be able to get a first and a player for Lauri Markkanen, which before the year, you're like 2 seconds, and Charles Bassey, like, sure. They are going to get a ton of value if they still want to tank, or they could just continue being one of the most exciting, young, interesting teams so far in the West.
Yeah, them and if you look at them, they're 10-3. Portland's 9-3. I mean, it shows you how early it is too, right? That we believe those teams are going to keep that up. I don't. I don't. Utah's a great little story, but I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to be a playoff team. I just don't believe that they can keep that up. That's tough to do, and that shows you how early it is too, right? Where we can overreact early, and sometimes we're spot on overreacting, and sometimes we're not. But I mean, I don't believe either one of those teams. And a lot of people didn't even have them as playoff teams, either one of those teams. So it's not the NFL where like teams come out and surprise you in a big way. I mean, I think the other unexpected storyline, would have to be the Golden State Warriors, but we believe that they're better than a 4-7 team, right? So again, it comes down to the factor of being a little early. And Minnesota is another one of those teams. Like, I think Minnesota has a lot of moving pieces right now that are sort of new. When you add Rudy, you got to figure out some things, right? And I think Minnesota is going to be better than what they're playing right now, too. I don't think they're going to be great. But again, it's early where people are sort of feeling out what they are, what is their identity, etc.
Yeah, I think same with the Pelicans. And if you talk individual, and I only say this, we know because we dealt with it, I think, but to the outside masses, the Ben Simmons debacle is a little bit unexpected. Because I only say that because we knew how it was. We figured as Sixers fans, as soon as we got rid of him, he was going to be a superstar wherever he went. You know what I mean? It was like, as soon as he got out the door, he wasn't going to see ghosts anymore. He was going to be good, and he was going to be fine. You know what I mean? And he is fucking dog shit in a fucking jar. It's embarrassing. Like, he doesn't even fucking dunk the ball. He airballs layups. It's incredible. The guy is broken. Like, it is wow. Sweeps.
The beautiful thing about it, and I know we'll get to them when we in the next thing, because there's two teams, and the Brooklyn Nets was one of them. He's been so bad for them. There is like an ongoing, this is amongst the Nets fans, so it's not even like the Sixers are trying to do this. A Nets fan conspiracy theory that he's fouling out on purpose so he doesn't have to go to the foul line in the fourth quarter. That's how bad he is.
Yeah.
And like, this isn't like troll accounts. Like, legitimate reporters are commenting on this theory, being like, that's a weird one, but Ben Simmons, we're talking about him, and things get weird when you talk about Ben Simmons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing would surprise me. If that was like true, I'd be like, okay, I see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's a kitty cat. We knew it. And it goes to show you the mental side of sports too, right? I mean, that guy is gifted. We can be real with that. That absolutely gifted. But you can see the mental side. And if you just want to be great, right? If you want to be great, a lot of things can happen for you, right? If you just want to coast and take pictures with your cars and have a lot of money and date a bunch of different women and really soak in what comes with the NBA lifestyle and just get through it. Well, guess what happened? He got worse through it. And a part of that is the mental block of it, right? Like, that guy couldn't handle hearing shoot the basketball, right? He couldn't deal with it. And guess what? Thank God it's not our problem anymore. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets are a train wreck. They're not going to be good. Kyrie Irving's a train wreck. He doesn't care about basketball. He doesn't care about his teammates. All right. And if I was the Nets, I would just get rid of him and get back whatever I could at this point, because they are better without Kyrie Irving. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because he is a special, special player. And I'm not even talking about off the court stuff. He's just aloof to me. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about his teammates. He proved that last year. I don't care. You don't want to get a vaccine, don't get a vaccine. But when your whole locker room gets it, I told you guys what was going to happen. I told you that guys were not going to take that well. They were not going to take that. You're not going to be here with us. When we all did it, why can't you? And it's carried over. It's carried over. And then there's more issues this year with them. So, I mean, for Kyrie on the court is special. But, Piper, I mean, you're talking about having the same record as the Nets right now. Like, it's that early where I'm not even going to have that conversation. If you got eyeballs, you can see the dysfunction, right? You can see the dysfunction going on there.
It's not about the record. It's about they are stuck because all of their we're just going to tank right now. No, their picks belong to Houston. So they can't, if they sucked and they blew it up, they're not even getting a top 5 pick. Houston is for many, many years.
Yeah. And that's all Tom was saying is the dysfunction. They fired a coach already, right? One of your best players is suspended 5 games, right? For anti-Semitic comments, whatever you want to call it, or whatever he was doing, sharing something on whatever. It's just Ben Simmons is a train wreck. So
it's a clown show.
They're the definition of dysfunction. So it doesn't matter. That's all you were saying. It doesn't matter that we're both 5 and 7.
Yeah, like that doesn't
down in your chest here about the Sixers either. But your point was they're dysfunction.
What position would you rather be in, right, guys? Like, what team would you rather be if you had a gun to your head? It's not even close. I got 2 players that don't even want to be there. Kyrie and Ben don't even want to play basketball. And Durant does, but, I mean, he's just a freak. And he might be the best player on the planet when he actually, engages. But I feel like he doesn't want to play basketball either.
No, he doesn't want to be there. He requested a trade and it didn't work. And he was like, no, I'll retract because they didn't get value. And Piper, I guess you're a Nets fan because you popped up when we were talking Nets. You did fire your coach. You did it already. It happens.
We said we don't care either way. Let's be clear about what we've said on this show. We said if you fire him, you fire him. But we don't know if that's necessarily going to change what's going on here. Like we said that, hey, I think it needs a little bit more time before you fire Doc. That's all. That's all. I just think it needs a little bit more time. And if you did fire him at 11:15 tonight, we're not going to blink an eye at it. We're not. It's just not going to happen.
It is funny, though, because as bad as the Nets are in, at least in my opinion, there's a team out there that I think is in a worse spot.
Who?
The LA Lakers.
The Lakers, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not even close.
First off, Rob Pelinka, as bad as I said, it's an insult to our intelligence that Doc Rivers is employed and Daryl's been bad. No, it's an insult to everybody's intelligence that not only Rob Pelinka is employed, but he got a 2-year extension after delivering whatever the hell this team is. The guy, I'm not saying we're good enough to be GMs, but I think we're good enough to watch basketball with our eyes and realize what works and what doesn't. Have you not realized what you need to do when you have LeBron James on your team? Surround him with one thing, shooting. You know what Rob Pelinka's never done? Surrounded him with shooting.
And at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, your best player is 38 years old or whatever old he is. He's at the end of his career. I mean, a groin injury again. Anthony Davis stinks. He's the most overrated player I've ever seen in my life. Their best player out of those 3 guys is probably Russell Westbrook, and that's not saying a lot, right? And that's why you're 2-9. Yeah, they are the worst because they sold their soul to the devil to get that ring, right? Mm-hmm. And you knew, the fact that they even gave LeBron an extension was comical to me right now. I mean, that was funny. So, I mean, they're a train wreck. I hate to see it. I truly hate to see it, but they don't look good. They're not going to look good for a long, long time. If they were smart, they would do everything in their power to move AD, to move LeBron, to move Russell. And actually, don't even move Russell. Move those 2. Give the keys to Russ, and I guarantee you're a better basketball team than 2-9. Not saying they're a playoff team. Just if Russ is your main guy, you're probably going to be pretty competitive because he's proven that throughout his career. That when it's just him, he'll be, he'll give you numbers and your team's going to fight and scratch and claw. They don't have any of that anymore. They just don't.
You're absolutely right. That's first off, they should have traded AD last year if they were smart. I don't even know because now you have Anthony Davis who all he wants to do is play from the perimeter like he's Karl Anthony Towns, but he can't shoot. His offense is downhill. He's a good defender, but that's about it. Oh, and by the way, he's going to miss 50 games a year. I don't even know what his value is. Like, what do you like? If you like put gun to my head, like what's a Anthony Davis trade look like? Vucevic, Alex Caruso, and like a 2026 pick from Chicago? But like that doesn't scream championship if I'm the Lakers. Like I don't know.
It screams starting over, which is what they need to do.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell, unless there's like a team that's desperate, like the Nets. Like the Nets need a center. Simmons can't play basketball, let alone play center. Claxton isn't it. But like, okay, Joe Harris, Ben Simmons, and Kyrie, who I don't even know if Kyrie's ever playing again. I don't know. Like I don't even know.
That makes the Lakers better in a crazy way, right? Yeah. In a crazy ass way, that definitely makes the Lakers better.
Well,
never thought I'd say that.
The bar's so low. Like we do this every Wednesday. The first couple weeks, I say to Ralph, who's your third best player? And it's like Lonnie Walker, Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverly, who scores a point a game. Like it's terrible.
It is, and they have no shooting. I mean, it's the worst shooting team in the history of basketball. So, and that's not going to get better anytime soon. It's just not.
Don was begging us to answer this question. Question, guys, is this Victor Wembanyama kid the best prospect since LeBron?
I have no idea. I mean, it looks pretty good. You know, he looks like a freak.
Sweeps, have you seen any of them?
No. Oh, is that the guy? Yeah, the monster guy that just
the one that's the one that's like a giraffe.
Yeah.
Giraffe's a good word for him.
Yeah, I worry about him getting injured as well, but I mean, it's tough to make that comparison. You know, like I said, I don't know how he's going to turn out or all that good stuff. You know, he looks like he's got some tools, and you know, it looks like he's playing on a Nerf rim. You know, but yeah, I wouldn't go as far as, you know, as the king, as the chosen one. You know what I mean? That's just, you know,
because when Bron was in high school, everyone was like, okay, we know he's at least going to be durable because he's built like a grown man when he was like, you know, 17. The Wembanyama thing, like, he's fun, but it's the same concern I had with Chet. Now, Wembanyama looks a lot like Wembanyama's got some like Akeem, Kevin Durant to him. Chet has a little bit of it, but not to the level of Wembanyama. But they're the same guys. Like, okay, how many times are they going to break an ankle? How many times are they going to try and go low post and get dominated by like a Jokic or an Embiid?
Yeah, this ain't Europe.
Yeah, like if he's playing the three, we're like, okay, you can play a perimeter game. You never need to go down low. Like, okay, but if I'm an NBA GM and I'm saying, oh, I have a 7'4" guy or however tall he is, who is extremely good in blocks and defenses, I can't put him at the three because everything he does well at the forefront is down low. So there really isn't a mold to him because people were saying he's Durant, but Durant wasn't this tall, and even as skinny as he is, he wasn't this skinny.
Piper says, what seed do you think you guys are finishing with? I'm going to still stand firm. I mean, you know, I think 3-4. I mean, I do, but they got to start playing better ASAP. You know, I'm not going to run from that 12 games in because I think that's what losers do. They run from their takes that quick. So I'm not going to go there. I still believe that they're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference regular season wise, but it's not looking like that right now, Piper.
Yeah, I mean, our preseason show, I think I had them at 4. So I mean, I'm with you about running away from it. So I'm still in the same. You know, nothing's changed for me. You know, 4 or 5.
I don't know what I had him. What I have him 2.
You and I both had him 2 behind Milwaukee. No, I'm not. Listen, I'm pissed. I hate everything about the team, as you heard for the first hour. But I said before the year that when everybody's healthy, the team actually makes sense, and I do think that. So I just got to pray to God that when Harden comes back, they kind of, I say pick up where they left off, but they were playing. They got blown out in 3 out of the 4 games Harden and Embiid played together. So I don't know. I'll buy into, hey, anything I think they're going to do, they don't. They do the opposite. So I think they stink right now, so that means they'll be good for the next 30 games and get me right back on board to then break my heart for the remaining, handful of games.
Oh yeah, like Sweep said. I mean, we've seen the movie, and I think now we're all sort of expecting that result again. So hopefully we're fooled. But tomorrow night's a big one for me because you just got embarrassed in the third quarter of that game the other night in Atlanta. Show me some resiliency. Come back. You're at home, okay, and go beat them now, right? So I need to see a win tomorrow night. I don't care if it's clean, sloppy, and different. I just need to get out of there with a win tomorrow. But guess what? I need Tyrese Maxey to play better because if he's shooting 3 for 13 without Harden, we're in trouble. I mean, we're in a lot of fucking trouble if he's not dropping 20 plus a night without Harden, right? I mean, and I love Tyrese, but he's got to figure it out. He's got to figure it out. I know he's a combo guard. I know he's not a true point guard, but we talk about how much he works at stuff, right? Well, I mean, if you wanted to go in the doc's office and talk about what you need to work on in the offseason, you wanted to talk about it right away, right? I guarantee those guys talk to him about being a true point guard. Mm-hmm. I guarantee that conversation was had with Sam Cassell and Doc Rivers, both point guards, that conversation was had. So I'll give Tyrese a little pass because it's early. He's young. I believe in him. I believe in his game. But I don't want to hear he can't play with Joel. Because when Joel was off the court last night, he was atrocious. He was actually worse without Joel last night than he was with him. So I just think people don't watch the game. They just react and post to social media, which is fine. That's what fans do. But don't say he can't play with Joel. Like that's the dumbest statement in the history of statements. That he can't play with Joe. What does that even mean? What'd you say? Like, come on. They're the perfect mix for each other. One can create a pick and roll, and then you get a pick and roll game. So we're joking, pop and shoot. Tyrese can drive to the basket. So I think they can play together. I think it's just Tyrese is trying to find his footing right now early on in the year.
Yeah, and I'll answer that. I'll answer Don's. I don't think that's the right word. I think that the punch is the punch is bigger than people thought. All right, and as a former player, that's a no-no. It's a no-no, right? I fought with some teammates, all right? I'm talking about the way it happened, all right? You're the enforcer. This is the young up-and-coming guy, the young buck. That's the next star of the team, and you go up and sneak him, bro. It's not even a fair fight. So there's no coming back from that. Like they might have sat down and Poole might have said, okay, I'm cool. There's no chance. No chance. Guys lost respect for Draymond that night. Right, so they might have to trade him, and I don't know what they can get for him. To Ryan's point about getting, what can you get for people?
Anthony Davis.
Who knows? All right, but it might be time, to move him because I don't know if there's a guy in that locker room that respects him. All right, and you say, well, on the court's different, and no, it's just that's resonating. It's having an effect on the season, on the start to the season. And
where do they play their worst basketball at?
At home, right?
On the road.
Oh, on the road.
And where the guys got to be great teammates and get along with each other for the most part. On the road. So there's definitely something to be said about that. And it's sort of like it's like too easy sweeps, and nobody's really talked about it enough.
I do think that's the biggest thing. Another key part to it, to why you're seeing like the Warriors doing things and they look like a team like we haven't seen in years. You can tell they made it a point this season to where like, okay, we're really going to find out who some of these young guys are. And like to Thomas' point with everything we've talked about, it's early. So like nobody should be willing to say like, insert name here is a bust, but they wanted to see what Kuminga was, what Wiseman was, Moody. Hey, Jordan Poole, are you worth that contract? And consistency wise, none of them are it. Like they're missing like an Otto Porter Jr. They're missing, those type of Juan Toscano Andersons, guys who just clean up the mess. There's just guys who are getting a ton of minutes right now that in the past, it's like, oh, Clay's having a bad game. Okay, here's a veteran who knows how to play basketball. Let's pick up the scraps here. There's guys who have a ton of talent that are just, hey, we're throwing you into the fire and we need you to do some things. And they've gotten off to a really sluggish start, whether you want to talk about Kuminga, Wiseman, or both of them. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely. Well, listen, this was fun. This is going to be, We'll bring it to you every Friday. We'll not only talk Sixers, but, we'll circle the entire league as well and give you a little NBA on A2D. Sixers play tomorrow night against the Hawks. It's a 7:30 game at the Wells Fargo. So, like I said, hopefully they can find a way to win that one. They got back-to-back. So, Saturday and then Sunday they play at 7:30. So, Saturday, Sunday games for Sixers. They got the Utah Jazz, the hot Utah Jazz traveling into town. So, two big ones. So, we could be, by the end of this weekend, it could go two ways, right? We could be feeling really good about ourselves, right? By the end of this weekend, maybe you went two in a row against two good teams and you start feeling better. Or you lose both and we feel worse, or you split it and you're like, okay, I sort of feel the same, right? Jazz do have a back-to-back as well. Just keep that in mind. They're in Washington on Saturday night. So they don't come in here with a day off either. Both teams on back-to-back, no excuses, and no excuses for this basketball team. They got to play better basketball now, starting right now. So great show, boys. Ton of fun. Thank you, everybody out there that tuned in, commented in. And remember, you can always go back and watch the replay on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or everywhere you get your podcasts, because we're there as well. So hit a like, hit a subscribe. Make sure you join us every Friday. And we thank you all. For Nick Delgazzo, Ryan Brodo, I'm Tom Arnone. We are brought to you by FanUp. And FanUp is the best way to enjoy fantasy sports, daily NBA and NFL contests, and more. Win great prizes. Sign up today. Use our promo code A2D for $50. Right at sign up, you can download FanUp right on the Apple Store. We said a half an hour, 45-minute show. We won an hour 11 in our first rodeo, but that's better than the marathon. So we did well. We did good, boys. We did good. Hopefully when the Sixers start playing better, we can keep it to 45 and we don't have so many distractions per se, because now they're distracting what we want to do. You know what I mean? So now you're getting in our way. Get out of our way. And Joel Embiid, I need you to be dominant. Tyrese Maxey, I need you to not shoot 3 for 13 or whatever you were last night. And PJ Tucker, it's almost like the Nick Castellanos. And I don't want to say his last name wrong because I'll say Nicky C. All right? Because people on Instagram have a problem that everybody's a freaking English teacher. So what I'll say is it feels a little similar. Like we were lied to, right? Like on what kind of player this was. And our eyes have sort of never lied to us because PJ brings toughness. Haven't really seen it yet. Hopefully we start.
Last thing, or you don't give $30 million to a 37-year-old.
But we can't say a word about it. The problem is because every one of us was like, you got to do it.
Well,
right?
because we bought into like, oh, he's tougher. Oh, Embiid wants him. It's like, yeah, they're just slower. But I'll save that for next week when they're still slow.
James, I'll leave you with this. We talk about the Celtics playing just as good without Doku. Well, because they're really good, right? So awesome. Part of it's him because I think he's a good coach, but part of it is they are loaded. They are loaded. Those two guys are studs, and they got their toughness in a guy like Marcus Smart. So they're really good.
Yeah, and those guys were probably coaching practice when he was in the traveling secretaries, underneath the desk. So those guys were coaching practice.
Well, you know why the Utah Jazz are really good? You know why the Utah Jazz are? You know who their coach is?
Bill Clinton.
The coach of the Utah Jazz was the assistant to Ime. So that guy was doing the coaching the entire time while Ime was up in the office.
Bill Clinton, little Bill Clinton. Getting his Bill Clinton on.
Don. All right, Don. You're our boy.
Don's the moral compass tonight, I see.
Yeah. Always got to have one.
Yep.
Guys, everybody out there, thanks for joining us. It was a ton of fun. It's great to just talk some NBA with you. And like we talked about, 2 big games coming up for our Philadelphia 76ers. And what's going to happen? We'll find out. See you, fam.
See you, boy.